Okay, hi there, and welcome to another episode of Ronan Nazarene Talks. We're on another Bergman episode, and today we're going to talk about two of his more famous films, Seven Seal from 1957 and Persona from 1966. I'm Solitary Ronan from Solitary Ronan Films.
Hello there, I'm Nazarene Prod. That's as far as I'm going now.
So these two films, like I said, are probably two of his more famous, two of his bigger, well, hits as far as people know who they are. Not sure how successful each of them were. But will we start with The Seventh Seal?
On you go.
This was my pick for this episode. It's kind of arguably his most iconic film. Everybody kind of knows the story, but it's essentially about a knight coming back from the Crusades with his squire, and he comes back to his homeland, which is full of plague and panic and fear. So it's pretty much like 2020. And it's essentially a road movie as the knight goes through the countryside, picks up stragglers on his way home, and he also has an encounter with Death, who they play chess with. And it's about existential questions about existence and the existence of God. I think that's pretty much the synopsis.
Yeah, I mean, it's a knight playing chess with death is a simple thing, but it's also about how you live your life as well, and the expectations you put yourself during your life, and how absurd they all are, and all the rest of that. Joyful things that Bergman loves to cheer his viewers up with.
Yes. I mean, this was inspired by the kind of frescoes and paintings that Bergman saw in churches because his father was a minister. And there's paintings by Albertus Pictos, which kind of shows somebody playing chess with death, and I think that inspired Bergman to write this.
Yeah. It's quite interesting because it's historical, and you actually get a lot about the Crusades and the reasons why people went on the Crusades, even from somewhere like Sweden, and how people felt it was a fate. They had to go and do it to redeem themselves in the eyes of God, and it shows you the kind of madness that created the Crusades in the first place. That's not that different from the madness we're seeing nowadays, where people try to purify themselves by purity testing, saying I'm perfect and you're evil, and all the rest of it. It shows we haven't changed much, really.
Yeah, I mean, it is actually, when I was watching it again, it's probably one of the two, along with Wild Strawberries, that I have seen the most. But even watching it again, it is fairly pertinent to the times that we're living in now.
Yeah, but at least we didn't actually, this time we haven't actually bombed anywhere. Not like not like George Bush Jr.
No.
We haven't really improved, but we just haven't bombed as much.
Yes.
I wasn't saying improved because look who we're mad leaders still.
So it stars Bibi Andersson, who's one of the players that Max von Sydow, who was only 26 at the time when he made this, even though he looks a lot older. Yeah,
he was
only 26. 40. I know, it's an amazing performance by him. Gunnar Bjornstad plays his squire, and Eric Nordberg. Nordberg is the detective from Naked Gun, played by O.J. Simpson. But I think it's Eric Nordberg. He plays Death, who's obviously iconic and has been ripped off by several people.
Yeah. I mean, your title for this was Ingmar Bergman ripped off Bill and Ted. That was your title for this video,
yes. Right? Ingmar Bergman got a time machine, went forward, saw Bill and Ted, went back, and did The Seventh Seal.
Yeah, that's the theory.
But it's now like such an iconic view of what death looks like.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. The two deaths that people remember are basically this and Bill and Ted's death. Yeah. They're the two iconic ones. And one's a parody of the other. One's a direct parody.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a road movie, essentially. And it works well as a road movie. But again, plot-wise, not a lot happens particularly. It's just the interaction between Von Sydow, who's off doing serious things with death, Gunnar Bjornstrand, who's more the earthy kind of live by experience kind of guy, and obviously you have the players and you have various characters that kind of drift in and out as they go towards Sydow's home and to the end.
So basically, what you're saying is, you watch this and Will Strawberries and most two road movies. You like Bergman road movies, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that must be the common theme.
Have you seen the film Road Trip? Just wondering. Have you seen the vacation movies?
I have seen the vacation movies, but I don't
Just
hold
wonder,
them quite up to the same standard. But
yeah, I did wonder for some reason. I just wondered, like, I see a pattern here.
yeah, I do
Suddenly,
love Vanishing Point. It's one of my favourite films.
yeah, you like your road movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the characters I thought was great in this one was the ex-priest who's now a rapist and a total con man who ended up with the plague, and it just shows you the kind of corruption started years ago, and now it's just like society that's lost all moral bearings and all ability to plan ahead, because a lot of the plagues probably come from the inability to actually clean themselves properly and have a healthy structure to their lives. It just seems that they've degraded themselves so badly before the plague arrived that it was like inevitable what was going to happen.
Yeah,
really.
he's a classic do as I say, not as I do character.
Yeah. I mean, he really is a total rapist in this film. It's like, first time he seems to try to rape a woman.
Yeah.
It's his first scene. And then he starts trying to fight with one of the players and eventually gets the plague and it's like, and you have no sympathy for him. It's like, good.
Yeah.
Very much.
I mean, it is a beautiful film. It's really atmospheric. It cost $150,000 or the equivalent to $150,000, and it looks like amazing.
Yeah. But it's simple the way you do it, though. It's not really... There's nothing really over the top. It's just carefully placed image after carefully placed image. It's like they planned it out very carefully and they go and shoot it. It's not like they're doing tons of effects. It's just like they know what they want.
Some of the scenes at the forest are actually just the back lot of a studio. They've just pointed the camera in a very careful way, so it's not as if they went to amazing locations and things like that.
No, but it's like well chosen locations. They actually know what they're doing, and the forest looks wonderful. I never knew that. It's like it looks like a forest. I mean, you've also got one of the other player in the group who's a scallywag. Basically, he seduces women. He runs off with them, then he eventually comes back, and he ends up causing havoc for his friends who are looking for him to take it out with the other players, which causes them hell. And it's like that's just life at that time. Is people behave selfishly and awfully. Or they're very, like Von Sydow, who's very self-involved to a degree that's actually unhelpful to anybody, really.
Yeah.
Because he goes to a crusade, doesn't mean anything, and by the time he comes back, his lands are plague-ridden, and it's like, well, this was the problem. People like him never did their job in the first place, really.
Yeah. And he doesn't necessarily interact that much with anybody else in the film. He's pretty much on his own journey while the other people just kind of drift around him because he has a higher purpose, quote unquote.
Yeah, but he doesn't know. That's the thing. That's the big point. He has no higher purpose. He thinks he does. He doesn't like people, but he doesn't have any real higher purpose. He's trying to make sense of his life, but he's utterly clueless about what his life means. He knows as little as anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favourite scenes is when there is actually a bit of communion with them when they're all sitting eating wild strawberries and milk.
Yes.
That's quite a beautiful scene. Obviously, wild strawberries mean a lot to the Swedes, and how short their summer is means a lot to the Swedes. So.
Yeah. So it's all this sequence, and just generally any time one Sid was with the travelling players, it shows another side of humanity. He's not really been tied to it all. He's just he's completely cut off from the concerns of the people.
Yeah.
And he's meant to be the leaders of the people, but he has no interest in the people. It's all self-involved. It's all about him. It's all about his fate and how he what does fate want from him, because I think he's fallen to the myth that he's one of the higher people, so he must
Yeah,
have a purpose. And Death's like, nope, you don't. You really don't. You're just deluding yourself.
yeah, because it's how people also react to him. You know, they bow to him. You know, everybody calls him sir, and you know,
Yeah, and and the whole film, I think, it's contained the Mickey at this whole idea of who we bow to, who we look up to, because it doesn't really mean anything. It's just pretensions.
yeah,
And Death kind of is mocking him. Death's playing a game of chess with him as if it's going to help in a way. All it is putting off the inevitable. And it just leads Death to a lot of people dying at the same time.
yeah, because death's a great leveler.
Yeah, and Death pretty much is like, well, Death. It's almost like he's got the plague and they won't admit it to himself, so he's going to spread it to everybody he comes into contact
Yeah,
with. Most people survive are the couple, the players and the kid, who run off
yeah,
at a certain point and they manage to escape it. At least for now. I mean, there's no promises they won't get it the day after. So it's not like it's not a sentimental film at all.
no, but I did actually find it quite moving at the end.
Yeah, I mean,
Which in the past I'm not sure I've found it quite as. But again, it's probably just a bit older.
yeah, but I mean, it's like I found that this time round I was far less sympathetic towards One Sido than I was before, because I think when
Yeah,
I first saw it, every say when you're younger, you're trying to answer the questions for yourself, so you think there must be some sort of meaning towards him, what he's doing, and then when you get older, you look at him as like, he's just pretentious.
yeah, he's
He's
not
just,
the hero.
yeah, he's not. This is not a glorification of him. This is like, this guy is not very bright. He just isn't. Like,
Yeah,
like his sidekick's a lot brighter. The sidekick just lives for now and accepts it as like, this is.
yeah, he understands the world better than Sido does.
Yeah, and he's also just like, there's no plan. It's just luck, and we went and fought a war that was just stupid,
Yeah,
just utterly stupid, and for no reason, you know. And he's just much more in line with the limitations of other people and who he is and how he's not the best person either, really. But he's okay because he's fine with it. He's like, I
yeah,
am who I am. And he tries to be nice to people, but he's not trying to be sentimental to them or anything. He just like accepts them for what they are.
yeah,
And when once Sidhu goes back home, his wife seemed that way as well. It's like, you finished with your petty little crusade. It's like she obviously thinks it was completely absurd what he
yeah,
did.
yeah. In some ways, if you actually look at the Bergman films, Gunnar Bjornstad actually gets better roles than One Sido sometimes.
Yeah, just
More
I
realistic ones.
yeah, probably just a case of what Bergman saw in him compared to what he saw in Vincida. Vincida always seems to have the kind of parts of the people who are a bit weak, a bit flawed, and you
Yeah,
know,
because I don't think Bjornstad would have been as good as the Knight as One Sido.
no,
If they'd swapped roles, I don't think it would have worked as well.
no, you kind of need that kind of slight weakness that Vincida can act so well.
Yeah,
The one we saw a few weeks ago, the musician one, well, the first one we saw, the young musician. Imagine how good it would have been with one sit down in it, really,
yeah,
because he'd have got the weakness without making you hate him.
yeah,
But yeah, no, it's like you're sympathetic towards the knight, even though he really isn't that all all that really. He's just
yeah.
not. He's the thing is he's almost like he's seen as a god. He's almost average amongst his class. It's just like this class of idiots that they had to look up to, but they're not really that important ultimately. They're kind of
No,
flawed people. There's a society that's kind of collapsed, and in this hero worship of these people who would rather go to war than actually deal with the problems.
yes,
But the but also we've been kind of not talking about the players. The players are another massive part of the film that tends to get ignored because everyone's talking about one instead of going against death.
But again, they're more real people who just live for the moment, and don't have the kind of same high and mighty ideas that Von Sydow obsesses about.
Yeah, he seems to be kind of focused on something that isn't there. No one else can see death either until the last minute when one of them sees playing chess with death and is like, "Let's get out of here," because one of the players thinks he can see signs, and his wife's always mocking him for it because it's like, you're just pretentious. You just get that disease of the rich type of thing of you think you know more than you actually do.
Yeah.
And a lot of the working class people are just getting on with their lives, and they accept that they're flawed and they've got weird drives, and it's like, well, we just try and live with it.
Yeah, you're just trying to survive, so you don't have time to have all these philosophical discussions.
Yeah. Or really any interest in it. It's like, well, what's the point? Really, what is the point of it all? And death kind of knocks that into one Sydow over time.
Yeah.
What is the point? Because he doesn't know anything either. He just, this is my job, that's it. It's not.
Yeah, he doesn't actually have any big answers.
Yeah. Which is quite a nice little touch.
Yeah.
The death's just got a job, that's it. He doesn't really know much. Because it could be a projection of one Sydow's brain anyway. He might not be doing anything with death, it just is like the foreshadowing of death. Maybe I'm just going mad, really.
It's like when Von Sydow's talking to the girl accused of being a witch. You know, he wants to see the devil and speak to the devil because the devil will know God, and then he'll get his answers that way.
Yeah,
so
he's desperate. That's a really dark sequence. You see her throughout. You see her early, then you see him transported to be burnt alive. It's taken its. When it happens, it's pretty horrifying. Because Bergman doesn't flinch from how horrible it is and how delusional these people are and how things have got out of control.
Yeah, that certainly wasn't CGI fire.
No. And that's what I like about this film is the idea that things have just gotten out of control, that people they've lost their centre and they don't know how to get back together. And even little talks in a bar can lead to violence quite easily if someone's been paranoid or someone's done it because someone else has slighted them slightly. It's like just the show of violence is ready to go at anybody because everyone's terrified. You know, and there's just this atmosphere of calm, but below the calm, there's something's not right. You know, but it looks so beautiful. But it's
it's an absolutely beautiful film. Again, I say this every single episode we do a Bergman, but again, I think his visual sense and his compositional eye is so underrated.
Yeah. It's very simple though, so that's why it sometimes is underrated. But there's wonderful the scene where one sort of meets the group. It's just a cliff face really, and it's not show offy at all. But it's just like people in that area, and it works so well. It's so beautiful.
Yeah,
it actually looks. I guess more impressive than the big, more dramatic stuff with death, because it's harder to do that kind of thing where it's looking at the camera, it's just looking at people interacting. You're really interested in them. That's really hard to do.
Yeah. His compositional sense isn't show-offy. You know, he doesn't have big, amazing camera movements and things like that. But especially on this Blu-ray set, it really jumps out at you how wonderful his compositions are.
Yeah, and just the depths of the imagery and how good he is at black and white. Like I think he stayed in black and white as long as possible. Really.
Yeah, he wasn't really a fan of colour, and it took him a while to get round to it.
Yeah, and see its possibilities. But I think
it's just something about colour that just doesn't give you what black and white does.
Yeah. I mean, I think Kubrick was the same though. Kubrick took forever to go into colour, really.
Yeah.
And did not Billy Wilder not do the same thing? Wasn't he?
Billy Wilder wasn't a colour fan either.
Yeah. A lot of them stayed as long in black and white as possible before it was now you have to go colour.
Yeah.
I think some of Billy Wilder, all the films people remember of him are black and white films.
Yes.
Really. I mean, no one really talks about his colour films as much as black and white ones.
No.
there might be something about the focus you have to have in black and white. It might focus your the scripting and the acting as well. So you're going for a certain thing that maybe in colour feels a bit more dissipated and not quite clear.
Yeah, colour can be a bit more distracting,
Yeah,
whereas black and white is a bit more focused, I think.
yeah. I think John Bergman was talking about. He says basically with colour, you have to be really careful what colours you use because if you cut between different shots of different colours, it can distract your eye and make you look at the wrong place. And
Yeah,
you have to be really careful how you design a colour sequence because there are potential distractions that you might not be aware of, and it could undo you. You may not even be aware of it. You may be wondering why we
yeah.
look at this and not feeling the right way. So you
And
need to
then
plan it out carefully.
and then you have the archers who are just like a colour smorgasbord.
Yeah, they love colour. I mean, they're like they're born for colour,
Yeah,
really.
but it is a really good debate, black and white versus colour, the advantages and pros and cons of either
Yeah,
form.
I think it's just a case of well, some artists are good at black and white, some are good at colour, and it's just like whoever one works for you
Yeah,
ultimately. Because you wouldn't want Michael Peld always doing black and white films, the same way you wouldn't want Bergman just doing colour films all the time. You
yeah.
want both. You want them to do the thing, what the medium is.
I mean, The Seventh Seal is also one of those non-English language films that are always in, you know, Empire's top 100. So if you don't have much knowledge or you're not into foreign films, non-English language films, it's always The Seventh Seal and Seven Samurai, something about the number seven. They're always
Yeah,
kind of in there.
yeah,
As for people who don't know, they just go, "Oh yeah, The Seventh Seal." That's. But I think it's still iconic and it's still a masterwork.
yeah. But I think in both those cases, I wouldn't say that they're the best films by those directors. They're the most famous ones, but
Yeah,
I wouldn't say they're the best ones. You know, but yeah, the Seventh Seal is a great atmosphere. I really like how they ended as she's talking about the book, the Seventh Seal, and the rest of it. This kind of sense of foreboding.
yeah,
And the Bible thing is almost like they're wishing their own deaths. There's like a sense of a culture that just isn't healthy, which I quite like about Bergman. How he does like Sodus and Tinsel and things like that, where he's going towards like more paganistic kind of beliefs and things, or a
yeah,
Christianity that was further back in time that isn't as well developed as it is now. Is a bit crazier. He's really good at going for the kind of crazy side of religion and crazy side of beliefs and creating this world that's dark. But you can also
yeah.
see something with shame though, which isn't about Christianity at all. But has that same sense of biblical doom
Yes,
floating over you. I mean, Bergman's father was a preacher, wasn't he?
yeah,
Bergman knows his hell and damnation really
yeah.
well.
He got dragged around a lot of churches as a child, so
So he knows the atmosphere of it though. I mean, it's almost like it's probably bad for him as a person, but it's good for him as an artist,
yeah.
really. Because
And obviously, I was just going to say because the players are there, there's still that obsession because he always has kind of artists of some kind in most of his films because
yeah,
he's all struggled between art and reality.
yeah, and posing and actual art. I mean, there's always this thing
Yeah,
like a lot of artists are posers or they have crazy notions about art. I mean, the good thing about the players in this one is they know it's a gimmick. It's just to cheer people up in a bad time. That's it. They have
yeah.
no
No
confusion over what.
pretensions. Yeah,
Yeah, there's no confusion what they are. They are doing gimmicks. They are being silly, but that's fine with them. That they enjoy doing that. They enjoy the response of people who need that. Really.
yeah,
So, so that's why I was kind of a very warm couple because they actually, despite the fact that the husband is a bit pretentious about his visions, his wife still loves him, puts up with him, just tells him off sometimes and says, "Don't be ridiculous,"
yeah,
you know. And obviously he loves her. He's his problem, but he has a sense of a tight family unit, which is missing from everywhere else. Everywhere else seems worn down by life and disappointed by people, and these two aren't
yeah.
really. They're the ones that survive.
But I think Bergman understood that he needed to have those kind of characters in this film, or it would just be completely unrelentingly grim.
Yeah, like his later films.
Yeah.
Like basically, if he's shot this 10 years later, they would be dead.
Yes.
They would not survive it. There's no way in hell
Yeah.
you'd survive.
The kid would be burned as a witch.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anything else to say about the Seventh Seal?
No, I think even though it is kind of, it's the one everybody mentions, even if you don't like Bergman, it still stands up, and it's still an amazing film.
Yeah. But strange enough, I like Shame better, which is that same kind of feel to it. That was the other way, I used to be the other way around. I used to like to Seal over Shame, and now
Yeah.
watching these again, they feel like the same film almost, but 10 years apart.
Yeah.
I like the darker version of it more now than I did 10 years ago. Maybe I'm more cynical, but maybe it's just a way. I might change again. I might switch around again as I get
Yeah.
older. But it was just interesting because those two films seem twinned in my head in some way. I don't know why.
Yeah. They're a wonderful double bill.
Yeah.
Feeling cheered up.
Yeah. Watch Shame first and then go to cheerful one if you want to be cheerful. Otherwise, you're going to be really depressed. Okay, now we're going to Persona, which was my choice for the film. And as I've explained to Ronan, the easy description of this is mad chicks. That's it. You're welcome. Bye. Bye.
Yes. Join us next week.
Yeah. So, Persona is about an actress. Well, I think Persona is one of those ones that people say is a masterpiece, and then say, "Please don't ask me about it because I can't explain anything about it." So, that's me the last 2 minutes. That's my explanation of the film. We have watched it, but we are kind of intimidated by it a little bit. So, there's an actress who falls silent, won't talk, won't do anything. She's just sitting in the bedroom. She just can't face the world, apparently. And she's like a top class actress. Everyone loves her, or respects her at least. And then she gets a nurse who's quite young. So Liv Ullmann plays the actress, and Bibi Anderson plays the nurse. And Bibi Anderson is a chatterbox who talks a lot about problems. She seems to help the actress a little bit to kind of relax a little bit. So they go to this place on an island that's actually like the home of one of the doctors for the summer, just to help the actress recuperate a little bit and try and help her by having her in nature and the sun, and obviously as much sun you can get in Sweden. Maybe the fog or the or partial sun. I don't know,
Yes.
but they wear sunbathing clothes in one scene, you know. So they do that, and basically it's a film about as the chatterbox talks and reveals more to herself, the actress seems to get better, and it's kind of almost a vampiric relationship where the actress is feeding off the woman and making the woman a lot more self-involved and a lot more self-aware and self-critical. So she's almost infected the woman with like modern malaise and modern existential crisis, and she's like feeding off it to get better by interacting with someone who wouldn't have that, and is also using her as a base for her character. So it's about this kind of downside of acting and the parasitical side of acting and the damage it can do to people around it, and why you shouldn't trust actors because they're all scumbags and you should burn them at the stake or put someone at a stake for their heart, like a virtual vampire, because they're awful. Does that sum it up?
Yeah, I think you did an excellent job there.
What, Mad Chicks?
No, your second attempt was much better.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I mean it's a difficult film. It's an experimental film in a lot of ways. Obviously, it's got this kind of assault in the first 7 minutes, this kind of montage, and his kind of answer to the new wave, which then inspired a lot of people in new wave to take the new wave even further. There is a great extra on the Bergman box set with Paul Schrader who talks about Persona, which you should definitely check out. Obviously, it's just a two-hander. It's one of your classic two-handers. It's very theatrical. As you say, vampiric. There is a scene later in the film which is more explicit about vampirism.
Yeah.
I think it is one of those films that for me at least, you know, it is voted in like the top 20 films all time, but for me, there is a kind of barrier between me absolutely loving it. I do think it is a really good film, but very much like The Silence for me, there is a kind of barrier between absolutely loving it. I get it on a technical level. It's fairly breathtaking. The acting's fantastic. But just for me, I don't consider it a masterpiece, which obviously a lot of people do. But I just think there's a barrier between me and absolutely adoring it.
It was funny because I love the Silence as well. I love this one.
Yeah,
It's just taste really. Yeah. One of the funny things about Bergman is he never seems to be that worried about taking like genre cliches, like the
no,
romantic comedy and making it really dark, or a horror movie and taking little bits from it. It's like he just sees it as a subject he can use. Like I mean, if you look at the one we did, or the musicians fall in love and then fall apart, it's like
yeah,
the romantic comedy, but it's taken to the worst extreme possible. It like, takes genres a little bit apart and looks at what's actually under the surface of them and some of the darkness of them, because I think the persona was an image he had in his head, a
yeah.
dream, and then it sprouted into something else.
Well, Persona was he was supposed to make another film with Liv Ullmann, but then he got sick, so he
Yeah,
kind of wrote it in hospital, in like in the space of 2 weeks, which is
yeah,
kind of understandable. It's one of his kind of darkest periods of his life,
yeah.
and this came out of it, which you can kind of see where it came from.
Yeah, because it's an actress doing that, but it could be a writer.
Yeah,
It worked perfectly if I was a writer, being sucking onto the lives of people around them and absolutely devastating them with observations he'll make on them. It covers anyone in the arts basically. This is your horror movie, how much of a monster you are,
yeah,
really. Uh, yeah, I really adore this film. I've always really liked this one, even when I couldn't understand it. It was kind of like when I was younger. It was kind of like the same as like Through a Glass Darkly. I'm not sure when I understood it perfectly well, but there's something about it I really liked. You
yeah,
know, I couldn't articulate it, but I really liked it. I mean, there's also that wonderfully dark scene where she leaves the glass on the path for Liv Ullmann to step on, which she would
yes,
never do in the early part of the movie. I think as the performances, because I mean, Liv Ullmann has the kind of grand dame thing, but she underplays it really nicely. But Bibi Anderson's the one that's carrying this movie. She's the one
yeah.
put on her back. She has to keep it interesting throughout, and she's really good in this one. She really has so much to do.
Because like
There's
we talked about the Seven Seal, I think if you swap those roles, it just wouldn't work as well.
no, you needed the kind of lightness to be corrupted by this kind of. I mean, Liv Ullmann in a lot of the other films of the '60s played more the person who was the saner one, like in Shame. She was a
Yeah,
wife, she had weaknesses, but she was a saner person compared to Von Sydow. In this one, she's the nut. She's the one who's the dangerous one. She's the one you should look out for because there's something malign about her,
yeah.
really. There's something you shouldn't trust. There's a self-involved quality to her that's really kind of a black hole of lack of emotion. Like she's interested in emotion for her art, but she's not interested in emotion for her people around her.
Well,
Really,
the title is based on the Latin for mask, apparently, persona,
yeah,
which makes sense.
yeah. There's also the idea of is Bibi Anderson's original character a mask because she hasn't thought through things? Is that just a simple mask? Is the kind of more working class? Don't think about it. A mask for despair. You're not going to actually go below the surface. And
Yeah,
like Liv Ullmann's lives below the surface. She lives in that area where the actual self involvement seems to make her really depressed and really it's kind of hurt her in a way because she's so self involved that it's not
yeah,
healthy. So you can't really live in there forever. You have to come back up and not be that self analytical all the time and actually just live life a little bit.
yeah.
It's kind of like they're two extremes and they have to try and find a kind of middle ground, really.
And Gunnar Bjornstad turns up briefly as Mrs. Vogler, which is a common name in Bergman films. For example, in Magician, that's what Max von Sydow's character is called.
Yeah,
So he briefly turns up as well. So
yeah,
even in a film that there's no other characters, Gunnar Bjornstad still gets work.
yeah. He must have known something about Bergman.
Yeah,
Like, I'll tell people this if we don't give me a job. I need to pay my rent this month. Give me a
yeah.
job.
I mean, I do think what is it, about 83 minutes or something like that. It is kind of the perfect length. I think at like 103 minutes, I think it would just be too much.
Yeah, it has to be stripped down.
It is economical and really, like you say, stripped down and raw.
Yeah, it's
Because
he was
he is one of the best filmmakers at knowing what length his film should be, and like that's actually quite hard for a lot of filmmakers. But
well.
Bergman does
I
seem
think
to do
he's
that better.
I think he learned it. 'Cause I think some of his early films are too long.
Yeah,
I think he learned like no, I
he's
need to
discussed that.
actually cut out some of this stuff.
Yeah,
It's not healthy. I mean, I wish someone showed Terry Gilliam Bergman films and say, look, length, length.
yeah, yeah.
It's a good half hour of this film you don't need.
But I think he's so good at knowing, if his film has to be 83 minutes, it's 83 minutes,
Yeah.
not 93.
And this one is the most like Bressonian film. It's just
Yeah,
so cut down, and he's asking actors to do little, really to be,
yeah,
but it's kind of let the characters kind of evolve in it. But I think it's also with the eyes. I mean, his Liverpool with these eyes that are kind of really dark and piercing and judgmental.
yeah,
Even though she seems to be blank, everyone says she's blank, but everyone knows she's watching them. Like it's almost like the biggest. I think Benson brings it up. It's making everyone have to deal with her on her level.
yeah,
Being so silent, she's manipulating people just by being silent. It's not like a selfless thing. It's not a disease thing. It's something much more self-involved and selfish, and you know, you have to live your life on my terms,
yeah.
which is the perfect artist thing of I'm only going to see this about life. That's it. I'm not going to see these other things.
Yeah, again, it's another Bergman obsession that runs through his films, the role of the artist in life.
Yeah, and this one is also like what the destructive part is because you find out Liv Ullmann has a son who adores her, but she just doesn't care for him at all.
Yeah,
That's pretty dark. Just
that
that
goes to
feeling.
dark places as well. Yeah,
It's like whoa. It's always like a taboo, like mothers not loving their children. It just
yeah,
affects everyone because like everyone's known people like that, and you know the damage it causes.
yeah.
Really, it's like
Because
the kid will be damaged.
yeah, because I should say there is a kind of teenage boy that appears in the 7 minute kind of prologue that may or may not be Liv Ullmann's son, and he's played by the same actor who was in The Silence, and he there's a bit where he reads a book, and that's the same book he reads in The Silence.
Jeez,
So take that what you will.
yeah, but yeah, no, but it's but the whole idea is that a damaging relationship is really like you can tell this is not going to end well. Between
No,
her and her son, there's something bad's going to happen. You see him lying down on what looks like a morgue table to start with.
yeah, because we've
It,
had shots of corpses
I know,
before
and
that.
it's like Jesus, this is Bergman is happy-go-lucky
Yeah, I mean, I
best.
would say this might be Bergman's best edited film. It's just a montage and kind of jump cuts, and um,
Yeah,
obviously there's a famous kind of not fourth wall breaking, but film breaking.
yeah,
Um, it's probably his most experimental, but I think it might be his best edited film as well.
yeah. It's funny now you were saying it was influenced by the new wave stuff. But I was thinking more about Richard Lester because Lester was doing it after the new wave, and so is Bergman,
Yeah,
and both of them tend to be looking at it from a distance of being a bit more critical of it.
yeah,
Really, I feel in watching the sequence, it's a bit more critical of the new wave stuff than the new wave would be, which I also
it's
feel with the Richard
yeah,
Lester verse stuff as well, which he's using the stuff, but he's also a bit more cynical about it.
yeah. Because as Paul Schrader says, then when people saw Persona, it was like, holy shit, we need to kind of do something else as well. So
Yeah, yeah, no, there is some really wonderful stuff there, but I think it's because it's so stripped down. It's two people in a room, and that's it. And it is wonderfully shot. The shots are they're not arty, but they are arty. They're arty without feel too arty.
Yeah.
They're like a suggestion of interior mind without feeling that way. Because they don't overdo it. It's like a good performance where they know when to pull back, they know when to not tell you something on the nose, just let you feel it rather than get told about it.
Yeah.
And that kind of floats through the film, that sense of the world's always kind of changing a lot. It's always changing subtly, just like their relationships changing, but it's also appropriate to their mindset.
Yeah.
Now, do you think how the sequence where she writes a letter to her friend and leaves the letter open and asks her to post it, do you think that was intentional? That she know she'd read it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but she acts as if, how dare you read it, but she left the letter open. It's like, it feels so much like manipulation. Like she's prodding her and like, I want to see you react to
the
this.
whole thing's about manipulation, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. I do feel bad for the Bibi Anderson character because she is pretty much she's lost a lot of her energy by the end, a lot of a sense of herself and what she wants for life.
Yes.
She had a very simple outlook to start with, and by the end of it, she really doesn't have it anymore. Their eyes have changed. The sense of what life is has changed. The sense of is this worth it?
She's been poisoned almost.
Yeah, it's like, is it worth being a nurse? Or is it enough? What have I put my life to? Is this really worth it? You know, and it's like pretty dark places.
Yes.
That this horrible actress takes her to.
It's one of his knockabout comedies.
Yeah. But it's also a look at art. Like, what does art do to people? Because everyone says, "Oh, art can be great for people." But it's like, yeah, it can be. But you also can deliver stuff that they don't really want to hear because it could be harmful to them. Yeah. You know, there is that element to art that you don't want to talk about, but it is there.
And again, I think that's why Bergman is probably the best director about the role of art in life. Even from, like Through a Glass Darkly, the role of the artist, the responsibility of the artist. Do you exploit real life tragedy to put into your art just to make your art better? And that role of the artist runs through pretty much all of his films. I think he's the best at kind of exploring that.
Yeah. I mean, it looks art in very big use for, but it's also, do artists exploit people? Yes, they do. It's like, he pretty much is like, he owns it up. It's like, yep, it's horrible. It happens all the time. Just, you should expect it. Just, that's the way it is. It's just, don't trust artists, the scum.
Yeah, he's always trying to balance that within himself as a writer.
Yeah.
And a human being himself. I think Bergman's human,
Yeah, because Bergman was famously a dysfunctional person.
Yes.
He'd been Me Too to death, I think, or cancelled for various things that were just normal at the time and or probably pretty ambiguous ultimately. But if you looked at it in the simplistic way we get nowadays, it would be like, you're cancelled.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a list of pretty much almost every great director who would probably be in trouble nowadays, but...
I know, pretty much, like Kubrick would have been in trouble for being cruel to people. Everybody would get it.
Yeah.
But that's what you need. I mean, artists who are good tend to be dysfunctional.
Yeah.
It's just people who are functional do not make art.
No.
It just doesn't happen.
Or they don't make good art.
Yeah, they make bland stuff.
They make middle of the road, inoffensive, unchallenging stuff.
Yeah, I mean, stuff you've worked out well before. I mean, they make Rob Reiner movies, basically. Like, late 90s, early 2000s Rob Reiner movies.
Or Ron Howard movies.
Yeah, that kind of thing of not very self-critical, not very critical of the society. You need someone who's crazy to actually do stuff like that and think, I can get away with this.
Ron Howard's persona would be a completely different film.
Yeah. I mean, did you see Elle, the Verhoeven one?
I haven't seen that yet. It's still in my backlog.
It's one of those ones that's like, only Paul Verhoeven would make this film. Only Paul Verhoeven would think he'd get away with this. And he did. But it was like, I couldn't think of anyone else even trying to make this film because it was like, it's so darkly funny about stuff that no one finds darkly funny. And it's like, only he would think we're doing this. think it was a logical thing, because it is kind of like, it's one of those films you can think, yeah, I would love to see Bergman's version of this, because it would be pretty disturbing as well. It's just a very dark film, and it's like, you don't get that very often nowadays. It's just like, what kind of easy film can we make about it? What can we sell?
Yeah.
I don't know how Bergman survived nowadays in cinema.
Yeah, they
I
probably,
mean,
to be honest.
I think probably much more like Dre or something would get a movie made every 5, 10 years and be like, oh, this is genius. Make more. And you couldn't.
Yeah.
Because, look at Malik. I mean, he's doing a lot more now, but they're still pretty low budget. They're not really big budget
Yeah.
stuff. He makes films out of budget, and he just seems to be doing a lot now. But I don't think easy films get made.
No.
Anyway, and I think a lot of the directors who are
They're not
difficult.
marketable.
Yeah.
People
Yes.
like things in a specific box.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I just don't know how people would respond to Shame or Persona nowadays. They would I don't even I think now, because the critics know it's a great film, but I think if you actually put it out to critics now, they'd be confused by it.
Yeah.
A new film just released now, it'd be like, this is weird, this is disturbing, don't show me this. It wouldn't be perceived as a masterpiece or anything. It'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, you play with audiences, but the critics are soft nowadays. There aren't that many good ones. There's lots of ones who are very vague and very dumb. You know, is the nicest way to put it. They're just looking for them as basic stuff.
Yeah.
And Bergman was lucky because he was about when there was a lot of good critics who were there to actually. Some of them probably cruel to him, but a lot of them were actually asking questions about what he's doing.
Well, plus there was also a lot of great filmmakers about to actually challenge the critics, and so the critics had to actually pay attention to what was going on. Whereas now there's just not any great filmmakers about.
Yeah, you also had on each other. I mean, you were having at the same time Bergman was making films. You Kubrick, you'd been well, and you'd all these Antonioni. They're all making their peak films, and they're all like another film coming out the year after is better than one just done, and it's like one after another after another. It's like non-stop.
I mean, the 50s are one of the best eras in world cinema.
Yeah, except for America.
Film Wars, that was pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. A lot of these directors were topping each other all the time. And
yeah, when you consider Bergman made Seven Seal and Wild Strawberries pretty much in the same kind of couple of years, it's...
Yeah. I mean, if you look at Buñuel in the 60s and 70s, he was just knocking them out one masterpiece after another. It was like, how can one person do all these?
Yeah.
You know.
Because they're just better.
Yeah, they're just... they struggled early and had to learn how to do this stuff and had to find their voice, and by the time you got to the peak they were actually very experienced craftsmen, so a good sense of craft as well as
art. Some of Bergman's earlier ones that don't quite work, but you can kind of see what's there and what Bergman would become. So
yeah, but it's also ambition. I mean, nowadays people just want to get hired by Marvel, really. They'll do an indie film and then they're hired to do a Marvel film, and it's like, well, you can't really go back to indie stuff after that, really.
No, it's harder to do.
Yeah. Unless you're from the industry like Paul Schrader.
Yeah.
He found a way to make himself unemployable within the studios repeatedly.
Yes.
Which that's quite helpful for him.
Yeah.
Ultimately. Because ultimately he had a much more interesting career than someone like Scorsese, who was embraced by the studios, but where you get blander films, and it's like, that's the thing with Bergman, you see, is he was still self-critical, very hard on himself, and people were very hard on him, so he had to always be good. And nowadays, if someone's a critical darling, they get away with stuff that it was like, they should be told, like, no, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
No, it's a masterpiece. And it's like, no, it's not. You're not helping anybody. You're not helping this person to be as good as he can be by saying something that's mediocre is acceptable. You know.
Because as soon as you start being comfortable and not challenged and being surrounded by people who just think you're brilliant all the time, that's not the best environment to making good stuff.
Yeah, even Bergman at his peak, he seemed to rebel against that and still make dark, difficult films. They didn't seem to believe it. When people say how great he was still like, I'm still depressed. I don't care.
But a lot of it was because the stuff came from Bergman.
Yeah,
You know, a lot of people like Scorsese or whatever, the ideas don't necessarily come from Scorsese. They're kind of just fed things. Oh yeah, you should do this, you should do that.
yeah,
Whereas Bergman, he was the engine for everything.
yeah. But when you look at directors like Schrader or Cronenberg, you feel a lot of the thing derives from them. Even if they're adapting someone else's work, they start to
Yeah,
find it, and they often do that to find something in it. It always feels like they're still delivering something that's personal.
yeah.
You know, in a
Because
way I don't.
let's Cronenberg hasn't written his own film for a while, so
I know, but
his
it,
films still come across as Cronenberg films.
yeah, I know. It's like finding something within it that actually works. It's a very hard thing to do, but it still feels personal in a way that. But he's struggles throughout the years as well. He doesn't always get films made.
Yeah.
And it's like I think it makes I think the struggle actually makes the films better because you have to be concentrated on them and actually make something good.
Yeah,
Well,
because he's never been afraid to potentially end his career, which he's done almost twice.
yeah, I think he's probably done more than that.
Yeah,
Ultimately,
probably. I was just thinking of Naked Lunch and Crash, but
Videodrome,
Butterfly probably didn't help.
yeah. And look at Schrader with Dominion and all these other films that have bombed cat people and things. He's bomb after bomb. Mishima almost ruined his career
Yeah,
because he made his masterpiece. Almost ruined his career.
yeah,
I mean, Thing pretty much ruined John Carpenter's Hollywood career.
yeah. He stopped.
I mean, that's his best film.
Yeah,
Sometimes you actually get ruined by being at your best. That's uh, that's why sometimes it's better to be in Europe, where maybe people are a bit crueler to you, but you still get making films.
yeah.
Yeah. We've wandered off well from Bergman now,
Yes,
haven't we?
Persona
Oh
is still
well.
fantastic,
The sun is great.
but for me, I would just give it a 4 out of 5, which again is sacrilege to a lot of people. But just for me, again, like I said,
Other people, me, a sacrifice to
well,
me.
most people, because Persona, if you look at kind of top 100 films all time, it's always pretty high. But again, just from a personal level, it's just
Yeah.
not. There's other Bergman films I would go to before watching Persona.
Yes, it's not one that's close to you,
No,
really.
but it's
And it's
still
one,
excellent.
yeah, but it's one that's
Not,
close to me, so it's one of those ones that for
yeah,
me is one of the close ones. Which actually makes it interesting because we've both at different ones that are closer. Like, I probably like, I mean, of the two we watched and talked about today, what was your favourite?
out of the two, Seven Seas.
Yeah, I mean, it's Persona.
Yeah,
I don't have to think about it, it's like Persona. It's just like, that's the way it is, just different tastes, looking for
well, that's
different
good.
things. Yeah. Yeah, that's why it's good to have two different opinions rather than just, you must follow my opinion.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
just
not by any stretch of the imagination saying, "Oh yeah, Persona is a terrible film," because it's not.
yeah, I
It's
know.
excellent. It's very very good.
Yeah,
But the problem is with Bergman, his benchmark is like so high.
yeah,
You're going to have films that people view as a masterpiece, but personally, you're going to have as like your sixth favorite Bergman. But that doesn't make it a bad film.
yeah. I remember when Saraband came out, it was like, well, this is really good. But it's not top class Bergman. And you're like, he's in his 80s.
Yeah,
Give him a break.
yeah,
It's like, you're lucky to get the film. Shut up.
yeah. When you're talking about the next level guys, you are sometimes it is. What's the last one you watched last? You know, that's your favorite. You know, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but even the films you love, that's a vector you love, there's certain films that jump out at you as your favourites. Other ones like, yeah, it's good, but it's not
Yeah,
one of the ones that I jump to straight away. You know, that's just the way it is. There's just some films you like better.
yeah.
So do we have anything else to say about these since we're very behind up to the last 10 minutes and other stuff?
No, I mean, like I say, they are kind of his two more famous or well-known films, even to people who don't know that much about Bergman, but they're still excellent films, strangely enough.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen them, go see them.
Yep. Definitely go see them. And I'm trying to think of a funny joke to end, but I can't think of anything.
Yeah, let us know which one you prefer.
Yeah.
What's your
So
favourite and why?
Yeah. Are you team Ronan? Or are you team Nazareth? What team are you? Make a war.
Yes,
Let's make a war.
let's have a vote.
We like mature conduct, but let's make this a war.
Yes,
Let's be 2020 about this. Everything's a war. We'll fight
yes,
about everything. We'll even have
everything's over.
the great Bergman fight of October 2020.
Yes,
Right. So I hope you enjoyed this.
yes, and join us again for
Yeah.
our next episode.
Yeah, we enjoyed it anyway. So we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.